Greetings ladies and gentlemen, today we're taking a look at a game called Avorion, and Avorion is a game which I've had trouble finding a good description for. The two best ones that I've found from various reviews of it is, the first one is that it's a mix of Freelancer plus Minecraft plus the X series, and the other one is that it's a bit like EVE Online plus Minecraft, and then of course in single player. And the Minecraft element in both of those is that you use blocks when you build your ships and your star bases, and that's essentially where the Minecraft element ceases to be relevant. And in this game really, you start out with a little drone, you mine out some asteroids, then you build your first ship, get a crew, and then you can decide on if you want to mine asteroids and sell those materials, if you want to become an intergalactic trader, if you want to equip your vessel and put armor and shields on it and want to fight pirates and get Dominion from there. So there's a lot of things you can do in the game. So I think it's a game that's better to show rather than tell. So I think we should just head on straight into it. Here we have my galaxy, which I've been playing on for a fair bit just to get my grips on the game. And you can also, and something that I like quite a bit, you can create a galaxy that is just creative mode, so you have unlimited resources and can build through anything that is in the game and build as massive of a ship as you possibly can. You can make humongous ships and insane designs, so it's not limited in that way. And one thing that I really like in is that you can be in creative mode, spend ages on making the best ship possible and make a beautiful, beautiful ship. And then you can save the design and go into your regular game and load it in. Of course you will need to pay for the materials that the ship consists of, but you don't have to sit and replicate it bit by bit or block by block. You can just straight out get it into the game, but you will need to have all the resources on hand. But we will create a new one here, and the game is procedurally generated, so it will create a different galaxy each time depending on the seed. So we will just put in something here and have it on normal and call it default galaxy. 3123 sounds reasonable. And there's also collision damage in here, and we will have it on full. It is actually quite substantial collision damage. I once rammed one of my ships at a speed of 600 meters per second into an asteroid and completely demolished my ship, but luckily I had put some insurance on it, so I got a very nice insurance payout. And there we go, and we will load into game. And you will have some tips, of course, like most games have when on the loading screen. You can use Ctrl-Z and Ctrl-Y to redo or undo your prices. And of course, as I mentioned, you can be an intergalactic trader. There's trading posts and neutral factions in the game, or AI factions in the game, that you can either be friends with or hate. So as I mentioned, you start in this little crappy drone. And you can zoom out quite a bit. So imagine the ships that you can make at this size. And you start near this space station over here that belongs to the Avorion army. I never actually had to pronounce those, and they don't make any sense when you do. So you can zoom out to an extreme degree. And if you zoom out long enough, you will enter a sort of RTS mode, because you can hire captains, you can make a fleet of ships and essentially form your own space empire at one point. I've never reached that far. But we will start by mining this asteroid where, if you look at the... I will show you here. Wait. Where is my cursor? I thought you could release the cursor. There we go. Here we have credits and your various resources. As you can see, there's... Wait, let's see math. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 different primary resources and also credits. And they will be like... I was going to say Iran, but I've been playing a bit too much Victoria 2, it seems. But iron is the most common material, and it's also very dense. So you will find it pretty much in every single sector that has asteroids. Titanium is a bit more rare, of course, and the other ones I have never really encountered. And we'll have different, like iron, as I mentioned, is very dense. So while it's abundant and cheap to make things with it, it will make your ship weigh quite a bit, and you will need to have fairly powerful thrusters to make up for it. While titanium is a pretty good resource, it's more light, it's a bit more durable, I believe, but it's very good for having things like generators and stuff like that. So you should consider having some titanium in your ship. Before we can make our first ship, we need to have 500 iron. And if you look down here, you can see that this asteroid has about 5,000 iron left. And it's a bit misleading, I noticed in the beginning, because your own, I guess, let's see if we can even see. Yeah, our iron mining turrets, we have 2 at the start, have an efficiency of 14. So it means that we get about 14% of the actual iron in the asteroids. So that's a bit unfortunate, otherwise you would be very, very rich. Of course, you can find all kinds of different turrets used by different materials that will be either better or worse. As I mentioned with the collision thing, one of the things I really like about this game is that you have momentum. So in your ship itself, you will have thrusters and you will have engines. And they will be, well, of course the engines that will propel you forward will be more powerful than thrusters. So if you go at max speed, it will take quite a while to slow down. You might even want to turn around your ship and move in a different direction in order to, well, to be able to stop. So you will end up in situations where you can kind of spin out of control if you're not careful. So I like that the feeling of, I don't know, momentum. It feels a bit more like being in space rather than being able to turn on a dime and just stop immediately. That would ruin things quite a bit. So now we should be able to make a shitty little ship, so at least can start out with the whole building phase, which is also an interesting bit of it. As I mentioned about the whole Minecraft thing, you can see already here that it's a bit of a blocky art style. Everything is blocks, even the asteroids consist of blocks, as you can see here. So if you're not a fan of blocky art styles, then yeah, you probably won't enjoy this game. The graphics in itself are not really bad. Oh, found some titanium. Wonderful, gonna get that. As for example, I like the sky part, the space part. It feels atmospheric in a way. Meanwhile, the blocky things is probably not the best ever. But it works, and it's, I mean, we get why developers go for the whole blocky thing. It's easier to make a building system in it, and it's easier for it to make sense. So the building thing only takes a little while to get used to, and it's very intuitive, I feel, after having spent a few hours trying to make my own ship and get my way through the galaxy. So now we at least have some titanium, we have some iron, and we can make our first ship. Probably should get a bit more iron first, just in case we will need it for our stuff. We'll also need to be close to a space station, because you will need crew in the game. You have crew, you will need to make some crew quarters, and your crew will need pay and everything like that. And eventually, when you can hire captains that will captain your ships, give them orders for what to do. Maybe you will design a big battle cruiser that will act as a convoy for your cargo hauler if you end up being some sort of trader. That's a possibility. We will try to be a bit closer to this whole resource depot, since your ship without crew is very inefficient at traveling, so we wouldn't want to waste too much time spending on the travel part. Alright, so now we are close enough. As you can see, we have the docking things, which we can do with our ship later on. We can't dock with this drone. It took me about 5 hours to figure that out, so it was a waste of time. Here we have found ship, and we will call it the USS Enterprise. Why the hell not? I watched too much Star Trek not to call it that. And here we start. Here's our ship. It's one single block at the start, and we'll get icons here that will say, for example, your ship has no crew. What is true? Not enough mechanics. Your ship will slowly take damage. Your yaw, pitch, and roll rotation speeds are bad. That's true. Brake thrust is slow, and your ship is very weak compared to everything else. And since it's only one block, I guess that makes sense. So we will head into building mode by clicking the letter B and end up here. And you can see the ship plan was already saved, so it will be here along with all the other ships. Seems a bit useless to have it here, but oh well. And here we will get information on the side, so you will have a lot of information when you're building your ship in order to determine how big it is. Already now it's 408 tons, and the max velocity is apparently 75 meters per second, even though we have no way of reaching that level. You will get information about how many system upgrade slots. The bigger your ship, the more slots you will have, and it will get into the whole system upgrade slots in a bit. How much cargo hold you have, crew quarters, and things like that. How many armed turrets and unarmed turrets. So the armed turrets are weapons, really. It's weapons. And the unarmed turrets are for example, mining lasers, salvaging turrets and stuff like that. and how much firepower you have, measured in omicrons, which I'm not sure really have to determine if it's good or bad. Maybe it's damage per second, or I don't know. It's a bit obscure what 1 omicron is, and if I should be afraid of it. And every ship starts with 0.5 gigawatts of generated energy. So we will start here with building, and one of the things I don't like and that you could probably get into is, you see down here we have a row of different materials. If you just look at these different blocks, could you tell what they are just from the image of them? I mean, this is an iron hull, vanilla block with windows apparently. So if you place one of them, you can see that well, I don't really see the window part. I guess it's these that are counted as windows, the light ones. And we can undo those and get the money back. But for example, this one is just an iron blank hull. So it's the same, but with no windows. And this one is apparently the engine, which I guess makes sense, since apparently I failed with the exhaust thing. You can see the arrow in the background determining which direction the ship is going in, and the engine will always go in the back. I guess you can, yeah, I mean, this is an exhaust, so you could guess now from the image that it is an iron engine. But this one, for example, is apparently a cargo bay. How am I supposed to know that? Thankfully, it gives you information immediately, but they are a bit bland in the way that they look. For example, this is a crew quarters, which, I mean, even if you place it, it would just look like a vanilla block with a lot of windows on them. So maybe make them a bit more distinct. It's just a minor thing. You will know what it is after a while, but this one is apparently an iron thruster, and it doesn't really look very nice, but you can hide it. It's fine. So okay, so we will start by just making a ship. And we will start with some crew quarters. We will need a bit of crew. So we will make something like this, 1 crew on each side. Seems about decent. And then we will have, we won't really have a cargo bay because we don't need it right now. Then I think we will get some, and you can see there's a lot of different materials. Like this one, Avorion hangar you can have eventually. You can have shields and everything. Though I haven't really reached the point yet where I can even have shields. Maybe we should get some energy. Notice an energy container. We will need some generator. Don't have enough titanium even for 1 generator. Well, we're skipping the generator then. And perhaps we will skip some crew quarters because we don't need this much of them. So instead of having crew quarters, we will simply just put down some iron hull around it. Let's make a basic vessel so we can get somewhere. And make it beautiful. Make it beautiful. This is going to be the most dysfunctional vessel ever, but I do have a good example of a decent ship, so I will show you in a bit. So I have some iron engines. We only have a bit more to use, so we will need to put down some thrusters while we can. As I mentioned, probably should have gotten some more iron. I guess now at least we can travel with this ship. It looks horrible. It looks absolutely disgusting, but it's possible to travel with it. And in the interface itself, which really could do with a cleanup, and you really have to guess what it is. For example, this purple one, the light purple one, I don't even know what that means. I have no idea. I never figured out what it does. The blue thing on top is the speed you're currently at, and this one is whether your thrusters is going at max capacity or not. Down here, the bottom one, the red to green one, is your hull, and this one is how much energy you have saved in the energy containers and your batteries. And the one above that is how much energy you're using up at any given moment. And you have a boost thing, which you can activate with spacebar, and you can see that it drains the batteries because your energy usage exceeds what you can currently produce, which is fine. Which is really fine. But we will dock in a bit just in order to get some crew for the ship. The problem here is, as I mentioned, I stopped using any kind of speed at all, but it takes a while for it to slow down, which can be rather dangerous if you don't have powerful enough thrusters to counteract your movement. Or in case you don't really take that into consideration, because you will accidentally hit things. And if you hit this, the faction that owns the space station, for example, will not be very happy with you. Good day, you are now talking to the automated interaction system of the resource depot. Ooh. Please state the nature of your inquiry. We will hire some crew, thank you very much. We will have, how about 10 of these merry old fellas? and then we will enter the ship menu, go into crew, and assign them, like 2 will go to engineer, and 2 will go to mechanics. And there we go. And there's also pilots, for example, if you have fighters, which you can get if you get a hangar. You can employ fighters that will go out and fight for you. Security, because boarding will be a thing. It's not implemented yet. As I mentioned, it's in early access. So there's things to be added to it. It's not completed yet, but it is quite substantial even for that. If you have armed turrets, you will need gunners to even be able to shoot them, and miners, of course, for the mining turrets or the unarmed turrets. Then we have boarders, which, as I mentioned, boarding is not in the game yet, so you can't get them or use them. We have sergeants, which you will need to have. We'll have, for each 10 crew or employed crewmen, you will need 1 sergeant. Then you have lieutenants, commanders, generals, and captains. So if you have made a fortune, for example, and you make a second ship, you can assign a captain to it, and you can give an order on, I assume, this menu. I haven't really reached that point myself, and tell them, for example, go here, buy this, go to this other place, sell it, then go to this third place, do this, in a bit of an RTS way, presumably. I mean, that's the only way you can really do it. And here you can get, as I mentioned before, that I had an insurance on my ship, and you can buy full insurance, which will pay out for 3 times or so the amount that you put into it, depending on. So the ship value right now is 10,000, and that's what I would get right now. I paid 3,000 into it to have an insurance. Each ship that you have and each crew that you have will need to be paid, and they will need to be paid quite a bit. Now this is a very small crew, so probably not a lot, but it will be paid a bit eventually. Okay, so let's leave this galaxy. It's a pretty shitty galaxy after all, my galaxy there, and head into the one that I have already played a fair bit on to show you a decent vessel. A decent vessel. Not a great one, but a decent one that I've gone quite a bit with. I have a fair amount of turrets on it. And here it is. It's looking pretty horrible, but it's a pretty nice bird. It's a pretty nice bird. So my idea is that in the core here, we can dissect it if we want to. You can remove everything and then just regret yourself and have it in again. We have titanium engines in the back here. Quite a few of them, so it's a fairly quick ship. All of it is covered in iron corner armor. And one of the things I really like about the whole building thing is that if we take, maybe we want to have some iron edge armor, right? Which can be pretty good at smoothing things out. If I want to rotate it, for example, all I need to do is hold down R, and you will get, these 3 dimensions, and you can flip it around easily. And no pressing on different buttons to flip in different directions. Just click on them and you'll get to where you need to go. It's so intuitive. I like it a lot. And it made building a lot easier. Even though, as I mentioned, all of these are pretty hard to figure out what they want, at least in the beginning. And you will need to learn how to use them. And if you hold down the different buttons, like for example, let's go for this one, maybe you want to have it in a different shape, and I already managed to do that. If you hold down W, for example, you can change the size to a ludicrous... Like, you can put down this if you want to. We don't have the iron for it, obviously, and the money, but you can put down this size, which is bigger than the damn ship, if you had the materials for it. There's few limits, really, to what you can do with the ships, which I like quite a bit. You can change it over here, just reduce the block size as standard is 2 in each way. So here we go down to the standard one again. If you hold down, for example, A, you can change one of them, S the other, and A the third dimension. So you can change it around however you want and put it down. There's no real limits to it. So maybe you want to have an additional layer here. And that's fine. I don't know why. Maybe it looks good. Probably doesn't. You can put down a few more. And as you can see, the mass would increase. And if we add enough, the thrust would decrease, since the mass is stronger. And also our hull size, or hull HP point, will increase. And now we will regret everything we've done. And just to show off, like, there's also no limits. For example, the thrusters. At first I thought that the thrusters would need to be free and that they need to have space in order to operate maximally. They don't. You can have them hidden, which is a godsend, because you can have all of this hidden now in the armor, and now apparently I have managed to fail here. I have one bit that is gone, as you can see right here, but that's fine. I guess it's fine. Some thrusters are vulnerable, but that doesn't really matter. And in here I covered up all the titanium generators and the cargo base, and everything like that is inside the head. Meanwhile, this is all thrusters and eventually the engines. So I think it's a fairly efficient ship, and in front we have all of the different guns. You can add them to different control groups easily just by clicking on them and pressing which control group they should be, so you can activate some of them at the same time. We have a bunch of bolted turrets, chain guns, and then 2 iron mining turrets and 2 iron salvaging turrets. And yeah, so we can fly around in it and fight things if we would like to. There were some pirates around here just a while ago. And I've noticed that titanium is fairly rare in the game. All I've encountered is mostly iron. And one of the biggest ways of getting titanium is really to salvage. So here's been a space battle a while ago. There were some enemies that decided to attack, or, well, enemies to some, anyway. And for some reason I decided to help out. And this ship is fairly hard to steer, after all. And if you select this, which you can do with the middle mouse button, you can see down here that it has 1,999 iron and 3,077 titanium, which is a fairly nice amount. So with the iron salvaging tool I can just select the parts that have the titanium and get some nice titanium from it. As I mentioned, all of this has certain efficiency, so some of it will be pretty crappy. For example, these salvaging turrets are pretty darn bad, so you only get a small amount from the titanium from it. And don't even get me started on the iron. It's not really worth salvaging for iron. I spent maybe an hour salvaging things before I decided, hey, it's probably be smarter if I didn't do that. Because you can just do it on the asteroid. It's like, almost hit it. Oh, almost. Almost. So the space that you're in is massive and procedurally generated. There's a ton of different factions, and they will have all-out wars. There will be pirates that will be flying around attacking you. I made a mistake once of entering a system that was devoid of life. There was nothing in it, and I decided to tab down, read a bit, do some other things. But as I realized when I heard the game music go into battle mode, was that the game does not pause. The game does not pause in a menu. The game does not pause while you're building the damn vessel. Pirates can show up at any time, which is probably why it's best to, well, when you make your ship, go into the whole building mode or free mode, so you have unlimited resources and also the peace of mind in order to just do whatever you want. You have these portals to get to the different sectors. Right now I think we will be going to Lunar Sorcery Free, or maybe not. Let's scroll out and see everything on the map. There's Lunar Sorcery Free, here is Lunar Sorcery 1, and over here is... Okay, I think Lunar Sorcery 1 will be a decent one. I've already been to the third one, Lunar Sorcery 3, which was not... As you can see, the names are amazing. Let's see what happens when you go with random names. Lunar Sorcery. I mean, sure. I can imagine that. And this ship has some pretty darn impressive generators. It doesn't really use a lot of energy at all compared to how much it produces. So if you look here, maybe 30% is used. So the batteries recharge really quickly. Now we entered a new system, and you can get a fairly nice overview of what's in the ship, in the system here, like a shipyard, a fertilizer factory, a gas collector, resource depot, repair dock, etc., etc. As I mentioned, trading is a fairly big part of the game, and you can, well, of course, trade. I can go to this potato farm, buy potatoes, and travel to a different sector that needs potatoes, sell the potatoes for a profit. I can go to a research station And the research stations will need certain materials that you can buy from a different sector that produces them. And from that way earn a profit. I haven't really figured out how to do it though. Like, how do I know which one is which? And how do I know which things that are needed for which research station, for example? What does it need? This, okay, we're having a faction battle here apparently. So there is the Itgikkel and the Federation of Ugiam. You know, I can't really deal with these names. But they will have some fairly impressive space battles that will be going off with or without you, which I like a lot. Let's travel around and then suddenly you will encounter a space battle, and I could pick a side here. I can decide to attack these guys and they would hate me, but I have good relations with them. Or I could attack these guys, which I have good relations with too. And that could sour my relationship. Like, this sector is controlled by the Federation. Meanwhile, these are controlled by the Kingdom of Lugiob, and this one by the Soliab. There's no way to pronounce those things. And you will get some estimation on the enemy ship. Like I mentioned before, Omicron is the way to measure if something is powerful or not, how much damage it does. And this one apparently does 17 Omicron, or has 17 Omicron in firepower. Meanwhile, our ship has, let me see, our ship is fairly powerful. So it has 155 Omicrons. So, pretty strong vessel, almost 9,000 hull points. Meanwhile, this one only has 8.5. Oh, so that's a fairly strong ship too. Let's see if we can just find some pirates attack, because you can attack with little worry. This is the way to Lunar Heresy Sorcery 2 and 3. Where is the other gate? Where is the other gate? Lunar Sorcery, and here is Lunar Sorcery 4. Wait, so which one did I come from again? 3, 2, I guess 4 is the one to go to. Yeah, let's go to 4. I wish there was a good way to reach the whole scrolled out thing without having to scroll out and back in again. Because this mode is really useful to scout out the sector and see where all the asteroids are. Since it can be fairly confusing to find it when you're just traveling around on your own. But it's a hassle to scroll out that far every single time. Maybe there is a button for it, but I haven't really found it yet. You should probably try to avoid heading into this fertilizer factory. Would be unfortunate. As I mentioned, it can be pretty hard to change your direction depending on how heavy your ship is. Luckily, this one is a bit maneuverable, comparably. And now we're in a sector that is having very little in it. It will cost credits every time you go through one of these portals, depending on. Some of them will cost a lot, some of them will cost very little. I think maybe going to the Lunar Sorcery 5 is a decent idea. There's some pretty impressive backgrounds, I must say. Like this one, for example. I like this planet a lot. I just like to look at the scenery. It's quite beautiful. Quite beautiful. So I found it to be a really good game to play while relaxing. Just like a couple of evenings now. Really every evening since I got this game, which is about 5 of them. I've sat down, played a little of this game, and just relaxed. Mined some asteroids, built a bit on my ship, got a new ship, just travel around. Though, this is a fairly unforgiving game, I should probably mention that. If you lose your ship, you will lose your ship and all the turrets that you have attached to it. You won't lose everything, like you won't lose all your iron or titanium or credits, thankfully. So if you have a good or sizable storage of them, you can build a new ship fairly easily. But for example, the turrets that you equipped on your ship, those will be lost until you go back, unless you go back and get them, which is, well, you have to hurry, otherwise they will disappear. And if you, like, I attached my things to these holes, but if those hull plates are destroyed, those turrets will go flying out into space. You can get them eventually, but it's a bit problematic if you're in a battle and suddenly you lose half your firepower. It's not really ideal. Conversely, if you just, for example, the space battle that I we passed through just a while ago. If I had just stayed and waited for them to fight and picked up and scavenged the resources, you can do that. Like the turrets that get loose, you can take them and no one really cares, at least not right now, unless they end up patching that. Though it's not really that big of a... It's not an exploit at all, it's not really a big advantage at all, but you can get some decent turrets from just watching the battles, picking up the turrets after they are being blown off from the various spaceships, and then you can look at the carcasses of the ships and get the titanium from them. That's how I got almost all of my titanium in order to make my ships. It's a fairly efficient way of doing things. And see, this sector is being attacked all the time. I noticed that there will be a patch fairly soon to patch out some of these faction wars, because they are really in every single sector you travel to. There will be a second battle, or a faction battle, which can be pretty cool, to be honest. But as well, it's a bit ridiculous that every single sector will have a battle all the time. So heading into Gate to... what's it called? Gate to Iron? What was this place called? Iron Will. Iron Will 1. So your goal really is to reach the center of the galaxy, and so you can tell there will be a long time until I will reach that. This is how far I've gotten. First ship I had, we start over here. I've traveled all the way up here until I was destroyed. It was mostly due to being AFK and losing half my ship, and then when I was going to go to repair it, I didn't have enough material, and accidentally ended up into an asteroid destroying my entire ship. And now, restarting, I've been getting here, so I've traveled through a few systems and rebuilt my ship. So the galaxy is pretty darn big, and as you can see, there's attacks already going on, and more ships are joining in. So if you like big space battles, you can take part of them or you can watch them. But honestly, if you like to just build a space empire and want to dig into a rather complex game with a lot of mechanics, I would recommend this game. As I mentioned, it's on early access on Steam. There will be a link in the description below if you're interested in the game. It costs about 18 euros, or your regional equivalent. So yeah, if you want to stroll around in space, becoming a pirate, or smuggling, or becoming a trader, or making your space empire. Maybe you want to, I don't know, build a battle fleet. Maybe you want to build a trading fleet. Or you want to just simply fly around as I am doing right now, mining and having a bit of fun. That is fine too. As I mentioned, this is a fairly complex game. A lot of mechanics and a lot of things that you can do, and a lot of capabilities for it. But it is not done yet, so there will be bugs and the incomplete mechanics, as I mentioned before with the boarding thing, which will be part of the game, but is not in the game right now. So if you're willing to dig into a fairly substantial early access game at early points, then you can do that.